listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
I'm Hattie here in the studio at KCCC 930 AM, and I am here with
Eve Flanigan.
And where are you from, Eve?
I am originally from Pennsylvania, but I have been here in Carlsbad, New Mexico for 36 years this month.
Oh, fabulous. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So I first found out about Eve through my friend Jean Prominski, who's been on the show, and she told me about your CHL classes. And I've mentioned them on Midweek Matters as events upcoming, but can you tell me a little bit about CHL classes, what they are and what they require?
Okay. First of all, Jean Prominski is an amazing individual. That word amazing is so overused, but oh my goodness, what a talented and gifted and kind and connection-oriented person.
She's beautiful.
So I feel very blessed to know her. And she's, like you said, the reason we're meeting today. You were asking about the concealed carry classes.
Yes.
And you use the term CHL, which in Texas refers to concealed handgun license, which makes me wonder if you're from Texas.
I did live there for 12 years.
Ah, okay. Okay. What city?
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Beautiful town. All right. Anyway, in New Mexico, the term, and actually, a lot of even license holders don't even know this, but we use the term CCW, which stands for Concealed Carry Weapon.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird term, I think, and not many people use it, but that's the terminology that New Mexico uses as CCW when they use it. It's not as common, though, as that moniker CHL or now LTC in Texas.
Right. Just the general license to carry.
Yeah. What about that program do you want to know?
For example, recently there was an altercation in the park and a woman was able to fend off an aggressor by pulling out a handgun, which in Texas she had a right to carry, and here she didn't actually. And I'm wondering, what kind of trouble could one get in, first of all, by carrying a concealed weapon without that CCW? And then what does the training entail?
So assuming that person was over 19 years of age, which in New Mexico, to carry legally, to carry a handgun at all, to possess a handgun at all, you need to be at least age 19. It's kind of weird because obviously the age of majority is 18, but you have to be at least 19 with your parents' permission. It's bizarre, but that's the way the law is written. Once you're 21, then you can apply for a concealed carry permit, or you can carry openly in certain locations. Being that person was at the carnival, is my understanding.
Or a park.
In a park. And the place was not posted, no guns.
Correct.
And there was nobody at the gate telling people they couldn't have guns. So we will consider it a legal to possess a handgun area in the first place. So had she been carrying open, there wouldn't have been any violation. But since it was concealed, and if it was loaded, she was committing a petty misdemeanor.
Okay.
Punishable by up to 6 months in jail in this state. So a lot of people, this is actually a question, a lot of times it's one of the kind of opener questions is, what degree of violation do you think it is in that concealed carry class? And most people say, oh, it's a felony. It actually isn't. It's a petty misdemeanor. And if the gun is not loaded, it might as well be a pair of sunglasses in your pocket. It's not addressed at all under the law.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, I don't think anybody wanted to make a charge against her since she helped bring a perpetrator to justice. But I was curious what might have been the ramifications of it. So I thank you.
Yeah, pretty minor. And there have been some challenges to that, some attempts to change that. In the most recent legislative session, there was an attempt to raise that violation to a full misdemeanor, which is punishable by a year in jail. Or up to 18 months, I think. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But that legislation did not pass. So at this point in time, it's still a petty misdemeanor.
All right. Well, I think that it's still, nobody wants to spend 6 months in jail. So I still think it's a good idea to get a license.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people think, well, why should I? Because open carry is legal here in New Mexico. Why bother if it's only a petty misdemeanor? I'm willing to take that charge, blah, blah, blah. Here are some advantages. I'm not promoting the program. Obviously, I benefit when people take it, but I'm not here to say it's right or wrong. I'm just giving information here. The advantage to having the license is when you go into a place that sells alcohol for consumption off premises, for example. If you go in there with a gun, then we're looking at a felonious charge.
Oh.
Unless you have that concealed carry license. And then as long as the place is not posted, it's not a violation anymore. And so where are the highest crime areas in pretty much any community? The convenience stores.
Right.
And to me, that alone presents the biggest advantage. There are certain other places that, let me think here, that you're
you don't have to
on the
know
spot.
everything.
It's like, the problem is I do know the things, and it's just leaving me right now because I'm slightly nervous. But that is the biggest advantage, is that ability to carry where alcohol is sold for consumption off premises. And the other one, but just dawned on me, is the ability to carry when you're licensed and concealed in restaurants, not beer and wine establishments, not breweries and wineries, unfortunately, but in places that are primarily restaurants and serve only beer and wine and are not posted. So they can't serve hard liquor. They can't be licensed as a winery or a brewery. It has to be primarily restaurant. And of course, the licensed person who's carrying the gun cannot be drinking to keep that possession of that gun in that place legal. So one of the disadvantages, I think, is part of the governor's COVID recovery program several years ago. She made the ability to get the hard liquor service license, which used to be treated like real estate in New Mexico. There were only a number of them around the state. Mm-hmm. They were about $250,000 a piece. You had to wait until somebody else was going out of business and had theirs on the market before you could get one. As a business owner, those are pretty lucrative because they're high profit. It's a high profit license. She made those licenses as readily available and as easy to get and as affordable now as the beer and wine service licenses. So most places that used to be beer and wine only went to full liquor service. Basically with the stroke of a pen, the governor made us felons overnight.
Oops.
If we go into those establishments now. And it greatly reduced the number of places a person who's carrying concealed can go legally.
Yeah, who can predict the full end of our acts, right?
Right. And you know, that's another advantage of at least taking the concealed carry class, is there's no one place that all these laws about concealment are coalesced. Because they're under the auspices of various departments within state government. So the concealed carry class is like the one place where you can learn about all of this stuff.
That sounds really important.
Yeah, it kind of is if you don't want to get in trouble. So,
and you offer it here locally once a month?
Once a month, on average, yeah.
And was it the 11th? Oh, I don't remember the date.
The 8th, August 8th and 9th would be the next one. It's Friday evening, 5:30 to 10. And then again, Saturday morning, 8:30 in the morning until about 2 o'clock p.m. And then we take people to shoot in small groups to the city range after the class is out.
I saw that there was a 2-day kind of component going on there.
It's not because I love death by PowerPoint. I do not. It's because the state requires that this be a 15-hour course. So it is one of the longest courses in the nation after, I think, Illinois and New York. So
that's pretty impressive because New York is known for the strength of their gun laws.
Yeah. And maybe not in a good way.
Not always, no.
No.
So, all right. So it's the 8th and 9th. That's a Friday and then Saturday.
Friday evening and Saturday.
Evening and then Saturday during the day. And so the shooting is on Saturday at the range.
Right. Well, once in a great while, that shooting schedule will change if the weather is interfering with that Saturday evening thing. Okay. Push it.
And what are the base requirements to take this training?
So the requirement is that you be 21 by 90 days after the end date of the class, because a person has up to 90 days to apply for the license. They have to be at least 21 to be licensed. However, they could take the course when they're 20 and minus like 60 days. And then when they hit, when they're 30 days out, go ahead and send that application and it will be honored. Legally speaking, they can't have had any felony convictions ever. Obviously, since age 18, we're talking any current indictments for a felony, no DUI conviction within the past 10 years, no drug-related conviction DUI within the past 5 years, no drug-related conviction within the past 10 years. And this is a big one. No conviction for any sort of crime of violence, even a misdemeanor, since the age of 18.
Oh, that is big.
And that puts a lot of people who made a silly mistake when they were, a young person out of the running for licensure for life in New Mexico, which is a big deal.
Because of a mistake made most likely in the age between 18 and 21.
Exactly. As we advocate in class, keeping this license and the ability to do so is a huge motivation to settle your differences with people peaceably.
Yeah.
It can have lifetime ramifications in terms of being allowed to possess a gun or ammunition.
I like the idea of pushing the peaceful route on gun owners.
It is, and that's kind of a stereotype that people have, is that, and you see with a lot of the legislation proposed and stuff, there's this underlying assumption from people who haven't been educated about self-protection, self-defense, that the gun is a tool for excitement, for violence, etc.
Right.
When actually it's quite the opposite. That training and that license comes with a huge responsibility to even be more courteous and more peace-loving than the average person, because we don't want to have to deal with the consequences legally, financially, socially,
right,
of what could happen after a deadly force encounter. And the example that you gave of the local woman here at the park is actually more typical of what happens in a firearm encounter. Is that, number one, a shot is never fired. That doesn't mean that we should count on posturing with a firearm as a solution to all our problems. That's not sound logic. But in reality, statistically speaking, those kind of conflicts are solved literally thousands of times every day across this nation. Many times the police are never even called because the person who would have done wrong decides that they don't want to deal with that consequence once they realize that the person's willing to defend themselves with deadly force. And that is actually statistically provable. We could go into that. Back in the 90s, there were statistics collected through the National Behavior Risk Factor Surveillance Survey, which I have a public health degree, so I'm kind of a data nerd.
Love it.
And that data was never published for years and years. And in this current century, a researcher found it and published it, and we came to know that guns are actually used more often to settle conflicts peaceably, far, far more than they're used in crime.
Strange that wasn't published for so long. It seems like it could have bolstered some lobbyists' arguments had they had that.
How can I put this politely? The people who were, when we were talking about the assumptions of what guns are associated with by people who don't understand or haven't grown up in an armed society, a peaceful armed society, the stereotypes are the opposite of what they found in that study.
Oh, so it didn't meet their preconceived notions.
Didn't meet their expectations, yeah. So it was different lobbyists.
Well, that makes sense then. Now, I like that you emphasize the self-defense aspect of gun ownership. Obviously, there's also a recreational, for sports and stuff. Do you find that, I don't know statistics and stuff, in your experience in our local area, the people taking the classes, are they also very self-defense minded, or are they also sportsmen, or is it, what do you think?
Those folks come to us from all walks of life. It's interesting. And in recent years, I can say, like in the post-COVID years, it's more, there have been more new gun owners who are women and who are racial minorities than ever in history. And those two groups have been, since the COVID era, the fastest growing segment of gun owners. The hunters and sports-minded people those segments are still there, but the exponential growth has been seen in brand new gun ownership by people who never thought of it previously to that. So, to answer your question, people come to that class from all walks of life. Is there a slight bent toward folks with a rural heritage or the sporting arms? heritage, yeah, possibly. But we've had a couple classes several classes actually, where women outnumbered men.
Nice.
And that usually surprises people.
I love that.
One thing that's not offered in the state and is unfortunately not offered locally is a bilingual class. And I think there's a need for that now.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've had a couple of inquiries about that. I'm not capable of doing that. And I actually don't know of anybody local who is and is licensed. So
Gotcha.
that's a gap that we have here.
It's definitely something that we might want to look into, since 46% of the people in the census were of Latin heritage alone. And then there's the other minorities, and 27% of them speak a second language in their household. Bilingual seems really important to me in this area.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. So when I reached out to you about this, you mentioned that you also had a program that you are launching, rolling out, working with.
I should say promoting would be the most generous description. I have not been a part of the business piece of that program at all. But I became aware of a new nonprofit that has been established. It's been a couple of years ago now, called Walk the Talk America. And their website is walkthetalkamerica.org. Their purpose is to address, without government involvement, and I'm going to use this word in a public health sense, the epidemic of suicide by gun owners. And, we have the statistics that the lobbyists who don't like guns like to use will tell us that there are a number of gun deaths every year in North America, in the United States, that approach the number of people killed in drunk driving accidents. It's a lot. It's hovering around 30,000. Of those, about a very small minority are due to gun crimes. Vast majority are suicides. And that's one of those stereotypes that nobody wants to,
It really surprised me when, after we spoke, I did just like one little search, and to find that suicide by gun owners was more common than the other gun deaths just blew my mind.
Yeah. So, all of the time and thought and resources we invest in things like self-defense and concealed carry, that's big, and it's important, and it's extremely empowering for people who pursue that path. But by the same token, I think gun owners and the mental health community need to pay some attention and, in a way, take care of our own within the gun community in terms of the suicide issue.
Yeah.
So, statistically, we know that the most likely group is white men age 70 and older, which is another one of those things that people kind of look at me surprised when I tell them. Walk the Talk America is doing a lot of things. They've got free screenings, a free depression screening that's completely anonymous, and you can take it yourself online, answer some questions. It'll give you a profile. It gives you some suggestions for wherever you fall on the spectrum of outcome. It offers suggestions it has a couple of online courses actually for psychotherapists. One is a kind of an entry-level people in the helping professions thing that actually anybody who's concerned about the issue could take, in terms of identifying risk. Do you have a plan? How specific is that plan? Does the plan involve a firearm, or is it some other means of harming oneself, an overdose or whatever? How to assess that and how to know what the likelihood is that that's super high risk in that moment. And then they have another kind of moving on up the scale, more serious training for psychotherapists that can offer, for some states, CEUs for their license. So it's, hey, you psychotherapists out there, free CEUs. You don't have to travel or spend any money. Go grab it now. So that's, I think, a super valuable resource. And that organization, the folks in the leadership of it, have started going to national conventions where there are people working in the helping professions and trying to get the word out there. Because one of the challenges is gun owners as a group are a little bit fearful of asking for help.
Yeah.
Because we are fearful of having our toys taken away, and that fear is not unfounded.
It's not.
You referred to the New York laws a little earlier, and that is actually one of the most, I think, unfair and brutal and cruel pieces of legislation that we've seen. It's actually the SAFE Act there has been, I think, defeated in some ways now through the appeals process. But it allowed physicians to order the confiscation of firearms owned by military veterans. The very people who've won our freedom are the first ones to have it taken away.
The ones trained to keep it and use it safely.
So, again, I would need to make it really clear, Walk the Talk America is not for legislation at all. Mm-hmm. They're for training people in the gun owner community and in the helping community to solve this problem and to encourage people to get help without fear and without stigma. So they also offer some suggestions, which I'd like to share on here, if I may. If you know someone that you think is at risk and is a gun owner and you're friendly with them, some suggestions, or maybe it's you yourself who, is having one of those periods where you're feeling down. First of all, please remember that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Most mental health problems are like most physical problems. They're temporary and they can go away in time, but for a short while they may make you miserable, but most of them are treatable.
Yeah.
Vast majority of them those problems are treatable. Rather than having the so-called red flag laws, which there's no evidence that those are effective in terms of preventing violence or preventing suicide. If you have a friend who is a gun owner you think may be at risk, have an honest conversation with them. Offer to store their guns with them if possible. Or maybe even, there's nothing wrong with going to take, if you have access to it, if it's reasonable, preferably with their permission, take the barrel out of their semi-auto pistol, take the bolt out of their rifle.
Right.
So you're taking the functional piece out that would, prevent them from following through on something that is a permanent decision and causes a lot of other people harm.
Thank you. I think that's a really important organization, Eve. But tell me, what are the basic skills that all gun owners should have?
I'm so glad you asked. One of the emphases in that concealed carry class is not just in the class. It's something that people, maybe they knew it when they come in and maybe they are hearing it for the first time, but it requires practice, is handling the gun safely and effectively. So what does that mean? That means we look at the four rules of firearm safety, that we treat every gun as if it's loaded, and that anybody hands you a gun or whatever, they say it's unloaded, you verify that, or you ask them to verify it for you. And regardless, you still treat it as loaded even after you know it's not. Because it's not like our phones that we handle every single day. Most people don't handle their gun every day.
Right.
So every time you physically interface with this thing, you're forming a habit. And that habit is either sloppy or it's effective. And it'll either keep you safe or endanger you and your family. Whether you're just handling it around the house, taking it from one room to another, or whether you're using it in an act of self-protection. The way we handle guns day to day matters, and it matters a lot. So, number one, we start with that working assumption that all guns are loaded. Number two, we are conscious of where the muzzle or the business end of the gun, where the bullet comes out. We're conscious of where that is at all times. And unless that gun is securely in a holster that it can't fall out of, and that nothing can get into from the outside and the trigger guard portion of that holster, unless that gun is holstered securely, that we are always conscientious about where that muzzle is pointing. That's always pointing somewhere. right? We are, each gun owner, each person who's has a gun in their hand is responsible for that. The third rule is keeping your fingers where they belong, and that is off the trigger. But going beyond that, because I like to talk about self-defense and not just safety. I mean, that's the whole reason I own handguns. I mean, they're fun, not to get me wrong. They're fun to shoot. But at the end of the day, I own them because I want to stay alive, right? Mm-hmm. The correct way to grip it is with the V of your hand up as high as it can go on the back strap, the back of the grip. For people who can't see my finger gun here in the studio, with the 3 lower fingers, the pinky, middle, and ring finger wrapped snugly around the grip, and that trigger finger, importantly, straight and on the frame of the pistol. I like to tell people feel the steel, because most handguns these days we use for concealed carry are basically plastic. At the bottom, it makes them lightweight. The steel part is the slide. And so keeping your finger up there on the slide means that it doesn't matter if you trip and fall or whatever, if you have to direct traffic or use your flashlight with the other hand and get distracted, that finger's going to be off the trigger where it could potentially do harm. But on the other hand, if you need to fire the gun, it's less than a second to put it into action. And finally, hugely important is being aware of what is in your environment. Maybe between you and the potential threat, maybe behind the person or thing that's threatening you. So being aware of your target environment, basically. It's a lot easier equation at the range, at the shooting range, where it's meant to be a target environment, than it is in the public spaces, like a church, like a movie theater, where we might take a handgun. Because in that environment, there's always going to be something on the other side of that muzzle that you don't want to destroy.
Absolutely.
So it's up to us to be responsible for that. And at the end of the day, that rule about keeping the finger off the trigger is probably the most important one, and it keeps people out of trouble.
That's definitely a good one. I remember when growing up in Florida, I lived in an apartment complex where somebody let off a gun in a violent situation, and it went into the next apartment and killed a small child. So you really do need to be aware of your greater surroundings. There's a lot of force behind those.
Definitely. People need to understand that things like drywall are nothing to a bullet. It'll sail right through. And in this community, we talk about this quite often in concealed carry class. So we have such a big part of our population living in RVs.
Right. And
same situation. The paper-thin walls of an RV are not bullet stoppers. And this is kind of a specialty product, but for myself and my own concealed carry gun, I like to carry frangible ammunition, frangible hollow points that disintegrate when they hit a surface like poured concrete or a thick hunk of wood. It'll go through the initial hunk of wood, but on the other end, it has no energy. So that it decreases the likelihood of harming something or somebody that I didn't intend.
I like that.
To hit. I actually proved that to myself. Everybody, sorry, if you've been to the concealed carry class, you get to hear this story twice. One evening, I was sitting, I live out in the rural area of our county, sitting there in my living room, and my little dog was barking that bark that I know meant there was a snake outside. Uh-oh. And so I jump up, I look out the window of my back door, and the window goes all the way to the ground, and I could see a very thick rattlesnake curled up literally against the glass, and my little dog's on the other side of it. I'm like, oh boy. So I go running out there, and I picked up the shovel and quickly remembered that I had strained both of my wrists carrying steel targets at a training event, and I was in no shape to swing a shovel.
Oh no.
And I'm sorry, pacifists. I love our reptile friends as much as anyone, but I also love my little dog. And when they're in the backyard, this is a whole other story. So it occurred to me, hey, I have frangible ammunition in the safe. Ran and grabbed that, and with that, I dispatched the big rattlesnake. And it was frangible ammunition. I've had the gift of doing ballistic testing with it on gel blocks, so I knew the performance was going to be impressive. But the snake was literally in 3 pieces on the porch. Not a dent, not a scratch, nothing broken at all.
That's impressive.
Whereas had I fired a live round, a normal live round into that poured concrete porch, it could have bounced and broken glass or hit me or hit a dog.
Absolutely.
So it's been motivating for me to carry that in my everyday carry gun. That's what I use. So it's kind of a specialty item. Unfortunately, there's no place in Carlsbad that carries it. You can get on websites like Lucky Gun or Midway USA and order Centerfire is the brand for frangible ammunition.
So you can order ammunition online.
Yeah.
That was my next question.
Oh.
Perfect. So it was really funny when you were giving the list of 4. Number 2 reminded me of something that I've noticed with my husband and my 9-year-old, in that he continually harasses my child if he aims his plastic orange gun at anyone.
Yes.
Like, just setting good habits right away.
Absolutely.
And I was like, that caught me off guard, but I was impressed. Like, that's actual forethought,
Yeah.
because you can develop really bad habits in childhood, as we all know.
Definitely. Definitely. And being aware of gun safety is something that I think is huge. And a 9-year-old of average developmental, status can easily learn the 4 rules of firearm safety and apply them, and maybe even later teach their friends if they're in a situation where that is,
Appropriate.
going on. And by the way, there are tons of good resources on YouTube in terms of talking to your kids about gun safety. There's a lot of good material out there. Not talking about it is kind of a recipe for trouble, I think.
I think so too. Open and honest communication.
Yeah. Because, guns are present, obviously, in media and in video games. They're everywhere. And there's a natural curiosity. There's this cool factor that can be associated with it if the person is playing certain video games or watching certain other media. And I think actually using the gun, particularly hunting, with a young person demystifies that entirely. And with hunting, and please understand, I do not enjoy killing. I don't like the thought of killing animals, but it is a reality. We have to eat. And it's a legitimate sport and legitimate conservation efforts to keep our native animals healthy and alive. I think it's very, very valuable for young people to take that hunter safety course and harvest an animal or two, because it brings the reality of death up close and personal to them.
I love that idea.
And demystifies all of that too, where it's not, whereas in a video game, the person you shot just pops up in the next screen and life goes on like nothing ever happened, like there's no consequence to it. Whereas you get that full sensory experience if you've got a rabbit or a deer or a quail or whatever in front of you that's used to be alive.
Really brings home what you've done.
Yeah.
And I think in a profound and a productive way.
Mm-hmm.
I like
in
that
a
idea.
humbling way. Very, very humbling if done well. And, that's a parent's responsibility, and up to the parent. Obviously, I'm not telling people what to do with kids, but
No, we didn't bring you for parenting advice, but I do like knowing that exists very much. So we're running out of time, so why don't we wrap up with you telling me again how we sign up for the CCW class?
Okay. So to sign up is pretty simple. You contact me, and I'll put my phone number out there for all to hear. It's all over the internet anyway. It's 575-642-4825. Again, that's 575-642-4825. Again, the class is Friday, August 8th in the evening and all day Saturday the 9th. The cost is $150. $75 deposit holds your space, and then the other $75 is due on arrival on Friday evening. After that, there are some additional costs. There's $56 for fingerprinting and $100 for processing the permit. You have up to 90 days, and those expenses are between the applicant and the state. I don't handle that at all. For military veterans, there is no license processing fee, and the fingerprints, I think, are only like $23. They get a big break.
As they should. Well, thank you so much, Eve. I really appreciate this.
Oh, thank you, Hattie. It's been a pleasure to meet you finally after lots of attempts. And I'm so thankful that we have a podcaster here who's going and doing great things for our community. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Eve.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.